It's September 17th, 2024, and I'm with Mr. John J. Jeckovich. What was the J stand for, Mr. Jeckovich?
Who?
John J. Jeckovich. What does the J stand
Jacob. John Joseph Jacob.
for? Okay. Mr. John J. Jeckovich. He's a World War II veteran from the Battle of the Bulge. He's knocking on the door of 100 years old, and he's in great health and looking to do, everything's going right in his life. He's got...
Where are my keys?
They're right there.
Okay, good. Okay. Continue.
Okay, and well, how about give me your dog tag number first?
42965.
Okay, so I'll keep up with the introduction. Mr. Jeckovich is knocking on the door of 100.
100 years old. Another month. I'll be 100 years old.
An interesting fact about making it to 100, if you're 40 years old today, you have about a 10% chance of making it to 100. 10% chance. Mr. Jeckovich did it. He's in fine health. He's got perfect eyesight. He can read the newspaper without glasses. If his hands are so strong, if he would shake your hands, he could knock you to the ground. He's in perfect shape.
Oh, boy.
We nicknamed him the Super
Hoorah! Hoorah!
Okay. We nicknamed him the Super Soldier. We really did. He was shot up, beat up, stabbed. You name it, bombed. You name it happened to this guy.
Hoorah!
You name it happened to this guy. He still has shrapnel in his leg, frostbite, trench foot. You name it.
That frostbite's bothering me now. That's bothering me.
And he's got that from the Battle of the Bulge, and he also he jogged for 80 years, but he also had knee damage when he was paratrooping in Belgium. But besides all that, he's in great shape. He has no worries whatsoever. And he's looking good today with all these new clothes, new haircut, and nails being done. He's living better than most. Mr. Jeckovich was in Company H, the 2nd Battalion, 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Yesterday, Mr. Jeckovich lives by the idea is yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift.
Where's the two books over there, David? Where are they?
The two books?
I got them right here.
No,
Oh, they're over here.
We got them. No.
They're right here.
let's see. Yeah.
All right,
No, wait a minute. Let me see it.
I'll go through them after.
No, that's America.
We'll go through it after the break. Let me keep on reading. They're right here in this bunker.
Is that America?
It's right there in the bunker. I'll go through it after the first break. Okay, so now we're reading Mr. Jeckovich's book, Their Mother's Sons, and we're on page 506, chapter 17, and it's titled The News of Renee's Tragic Death. And for those who don't know, briefly I'll fill you in who Renee is. Mr. Jeckovich, when he was shot up at the Battle of Bulge, they sent him to Paris to recover for several months, and then they sent him back to the front line. But he met a very nice lady, a former nun, cloistered nun named Renee, and she was an artist. And Mr. Jeckovich would be seeing Renee every day, every night. And Mr. Jeckovich had to take a bus, a train, and then a taxi cab to see her. And he always made it back on time. You were never marked AWOL once, were you?
Huh?
On all the trips you had to get to see Renee, you were never late. You're always back to Paris.
Never AWOL.
And Renee was a great artist, and she painted many portraits of paintings of World War II officers in the SS. And this is when Paris was occupied by the Nazis. Mr. Jeckovich and many other soldiers and allies ran the Nazis out of Paris. And Mr. Jeckovich became quite great friends with Renee. But when he recovered at the Paris hospital, they basically said if your index finger will still work to shoot the machine gun, and you're able to walk, you're fit for duty. Is that what they told you?
Yep.
Fit for duty.
Fit for duty, yep.
And so they sent him back to the front line. So Mr. Jeckovich spent much time with Renee, but the rest of the story with Renee of her tragic death was she was painting these officers' portraits. She was a great artist, I'm told, and just to gather information because the SS during their occupying Paris for 4 years, Renee, as a cloistered nun, found out that her father and mother, which are basically young people, because Renee was in her 20s, so her parents had to be probably in their 40s, mid-40s. They were killed and murdered by the SS, and then later she found out her two brothers, and they were probably just like 18, 19, 20, were both killed by the SS. So she left in a convent and she joined the French resistance. Did you ever go to their headquarters of the French resistance?
Yeah, a dumpy place down in the sewer.
Okay. But that's where they worked out of.
Yeah, that's where they worked at, yeah.
But they were never discovered there by the Nazis, were they?
No, no, that's why they were down there.
Okay.
So it was so terrible, nobody looked for them.
So Renee was painting all these officers and SS portraits and paintings of them because these guys have great big egos and they love to see themselves up on an easel. Well, she was doing this to gather information of the from these soldiers, from these officers, and then what happened? She found she was found out, and she was gathering information.
They shot her. They shot her. Yep. They shot her. Yep. In the head.
Shot in the head.
One bolt in the head.
That was it. That was it. So that was where we're at this chapter. I mean, Mr. Jeckovich is already back home in Niagara Falls, New York, and his latest girlfriend's named Rose. During World War II, Mr. Jeckovich had three girlfriends. One was Anne Mahaney from Owensboro, Kentucky, and the other was Jean Young. It's actually Jean Rowland Young.
Jean Rowland Young, yeah.
Jean Rowland Young.
Never found her.
And the last one was Renee. What Mr. Jeckovich means that we never found her. We found Anne Mahaney. Mr. Jeckovich simply talked to her on the phone 5 years ago. So that was an easy one to contact. We spent a lot of time and effort and resources in finding Jean Rowland Young. In fact, one of the largest papers in Europe, based out of London, called the Daily Mail, did a full-page story with circulations of about 1 million, and we didn't turn up any leads.
Oh.
We later hired a private investigator from Paris, and he went to Haverford West, where the house was, and he talked to several of the neighbors on both streets up and down, and he could not get any information whatsoever what happened to the Young family. And the Young family, Jean Rowland Young's father was the mayor there back in the 40s. But you would think you would get some type of hit, someone would have some type of leads, but to this date, a lot of resources have been used and we still have not located Jean Rowland Young. So if any of the listeners out of Haverford West, which we've got many, we get texts from them all the time. If you know the whereabouts of the Young family or Jean Rowland Young, we would sure be interested in hearing from you. So then when Mr. Jeckovich got back to Niagara Falls, he met a nice lady in the library. What was her name?
Virginia.
Virginia, And then he met another one named Rose, and she worked at Kimley.
Rose Kamensky, yeah.
Rose Kamensky. Did she also speak Polish?
Oh.
Rose?
No, no, she didn't have an accent or nothing.
But
no.
did she also, was she able to speak Polish though?
Yeah.
Because I know you said,
Well, she was Polish accent. What was the word of it? Yeah.
because you told me her parents had a strong Polish accent.
Yeah, well, they were talking Polish at home, yeah.
Yeah. And what happened with your father when he got at home? What did he tell you about language?
43 years old.
No, what did your father tell you about what language we speak here? Your father.
What lady?
What language Do you speak?
At home we talk American. We don't talk Russian, you don't talk Slavish, you don't talk Polish, you talk American. We're living in America, we'll talk American.
And that's why I wish most of these immigrants today would follow that same system as your father did, who came to the United States through Ellis Island legally, and he was basically worked very hard. He couldn't stop working to support his family, and he died at the age of 43. Never took a handout, nor would never consider taking a handout. So your mother would be Polish, and your father was Russian, and basically at home your father said, no one speaks nothing here but English, correct?
Right.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let me pick up where we were reading. Do you have any comments before we read?
No, go ahead.
Did you want to read a few pages?
No, go ahead. You're doing an excellent job.
Oh, I am. Thank you. You're looking very nice in your new clothes and your haircut and all your new stuff you got on today. You look very nice, Mr. Jeckovich. So, here we go. My initial concern for Rose, a well-being, never wavered. I believe she was sacrificing everything for her social status. Her inner tranquility, satisfaction, love for another being, and lastly, her desire to share one's life with someone she did not really care for or loved. I thought it was too much to give up. So what you mean by this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Rose did not want to go further with you because you're working in the mill.
She didn't want a mill hand.
Like her father.
Yeah.
But she found some guy she didn't really love, nor she didn't care about, but he worked in the front office.
So she grabbed him.
Suit and tie. She didn't really know nothing about it. And they ran off to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And then they got married.
And then never heard of it after that.
And you were concerned, like, why are you doing this just for social status of marrying somebody that wears a suit and tie? And that's what she wanted. But the interesting side note here is the people back then that were working in the office, even though they were wearing suits and ties and looked very professional, and you guys in the mill were wearing basically t-shirts, you guys were making more money.
No, they didn't see it that way.
You had overtime.
Yeah.
And lots of money. But she wanted to get someone in a suit and tie.
Yeah.
Okay. And
That's the whole story. That's the whole
she
story.
knew nothing about him, but she went out and married him. Okay, she was torn between her true emotions and her driving almost desire to rid herself of a commonplace existence. I only perceived of her ordinary life she was desperately wanted to get rid of. She wanted to remove herself from its grip, but would not untangle herself from its web. In a moment of desperation, she clutched at her first opportunity that presented itself. I only hope she would not regret it, and we'll never know.
Never know.
Here we are, sitting here in an underground bunker with not the greatest lights running on generators, but we could see. But interesting point. I'm on page 506. And I remember you told me some guy, I've never found a misspelling or anything out of order in this book. I never found a misspelling or anything out of order in this book. You told me some guy told you there was all kinds of problems.
Oh, there was problems with punctuation, problems with the rate, with the format, problems with the spelling. He said, it's got some good points, but the bad points overshadow it.
Who was this guy?
Someday ago.
I assure you, for him glancing through the book, he didn't read 900 pages.
Yeah.
How would he make such an assumption?
Well, he did.
And he told you that right to your face.
Yeah.
With no basis.
Yeah.
Because I'm on page 506 and I've never found one problem yet.
Yeah.
Not one problem. Yeah. It's a very well-written book. It must have took you years to write.
No, 6 months.
6 months?
6 months.
So this guy came up and told you there's all kinds of problems.
Oh, yeah. He's critical. He had a critical analysis.
And what did he do for a living?
Oh.
This guy?
I worked in some steward factory.
I see. But he was telling you about your business.
Yeah.
He said there was misspellings, never found one.
No.
Never found one. He must have been one hell of a speed reader for him to read almost 900 pages in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably never read the damn book either.
No, unfortunately, there's a lot of people like that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people like that. Okay, let me read more about Rose. I would always remember her as a warm, loving person, caught in a trap of trying to break away from her beginnings, and yet still abiding the same factors that conditions her. And plus, he said you had the history wrong. What could he possibly mean? That history is right on. That history is point on that you have here.
Right.
Remember, the guy said you had some problems with history, and he was going to tell you about the history of some things in your book.
Yeah.
You didn't know nothing about it.
You didn't know nothing about it, no.
You didn't know nothing about it. Thank you. How many minutes do we have on the clock?
It is 12? 13.
Is my microphone live?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Let's see. I would always remember her, this is Rose, as a warm, loving person caught in the trap of trying to break away from her beginnings and yet still abiding by her same factors that condition her so. I pray that she found contentment and true love, which she craved for a long time, and that the decision she so made benefited her the rest of her life. I hope so too. I hope so too. Rose had magnified my predicament and only intensified my resolve to do something constructive. But what was I going to do in my conundrum? I was not timid. The Army showed me that. I could never think through a plan of action without feelings, pains, and guilt, and that mother would have fend for herself, and that she would feel that I deserted her. It always crept into anything I wanted to do, and I would feel helpless when it took hold of me and distorted my thoughts and eventually my behavior. Rose saw this, but was helpless to do anything about it, and this frustration on her part mostly led her to the course of events she chose for herself. I would become angry at myself, and I became where mother was concerned. Surely I had done my share, and then some. It was time to think about myself. But for some strange reason, I can never do that. Think only of myself, and I would always have familiar responsibilities I'd always have family responsibilities in the forefront. Stephen Lookie. Who's Stephen Lookie?
Stephen Lookie, my brothers.
Okay. Stephen Lookie were not overly concerned about mother, and they were certainly displaying the fruits of her self-interest. I knew for a fact they would both be leaving the household permanently in a short while, which would leave me entirely at home with mother and Sally. I think you said that even when Steve and Lookie were living at home, two things come to mind. Number one, they never contributed financially, and number two, they're rarely home.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's just a base home, that's all.
I see. Let's see. I dare Sally would be leaving the first chance afforded her, as with Stephen Lookie, without any undue concern for mother's welfare or well-being. For the first time, the full impact of my future hit me quite forcibly, and I was frightened by the prospect of it. I did not want to sit out the rest of my life nursing some kind of guilt feeling regarding my mother and father. I wanted a life of my own, and yes, a family of my own, away from all this distraction and aggravation. Up to this point, I have never met the test to be self-centered and think only of my well-being, which should be a natural instinct. Okay, where the hell was I? Okay. That I somehow never acquired Anne had shown me my nature when she put me to the test and I failed miserably. I was aware of what I should have done, but never could follow through with it. There are always obstacles in the ways and feelings to consider. I found myself thinking more and more about my future life, and I did not like any of what I perceived. My job was unsatisfactory and almost demeaning. With its shift work and people I had nothing in common with. Why did you have nothing in common with them?
Huh?
The people you worked with at the factory.
Well, they were drinkers and bowlers.
They were drinkers and what?
Bowlers.
Bowlers. Did they play all sports?
The what?
Minutes?
8.
Did they play all the sports per season? Every season they played a different sport?
What?
Did they play many sports?
Did they play any sports?
Did they play many sports? Bowling, football?
The company had a baseball team, yeah, they were in that.
Did you ever join the baseball league?
No.
Did you ever go watch the baseball league?
I was out there. Well, they were doing that High Park,
Gill Creek?
Jill Creek.
Let me ask you, did their wives come and watch the game?
Huh?
Did the workers' wives come watch the games?
Some of them.
Okay. All right, now I'm getting a better picture of what you're speaking of. It's getting clearer to me now. I had felt self-conscious in the attention I showered on Mother and Sally, almost in the matter of obliging father. It seemed like I was a doting son with nothing better to do. Mother would relish the attention, but would always state that she did not ask or want any special treatment. By the same token, if it was denied or overlooked for some reason, she would sulk and become belligerent and contentious. Okay. So you took care of your sister as much as you took care of your mother, right?
Oh.
You took care of your sister Sally as much as you took care of your mother, right?
Who took care of the mother?
You took care of your mother and your sister
Well, I
Sally.
didn't think nothing of it. Everybody was doing that, yeah.
But you did take, that's what the book is saying right
Yeah.
here. Okay. Shopping was another ritual. I would drive them to shopping and either wait for them or return a later hour after they completed their shopping. Seldom would I drive Mother to work unless the weather was bad, but I usually pick her up from work. When I was not working. She would become distraught if I did not pick her up for some reason and refuse to enter the car when I would be there the next day to pick her up. So sometimes she went there to pick up your mother at Carborundum and she wouldn't get in your car.
Yeah, she was pissed off, yeah, because I missed the day. I was working or something.
This is hard to believe.
Yeah, well, that's how they work.
Oh, Lord, this is hard to believe. Lucky very seldom went to these lengths for Mother, as it was never expected of him. He would go down his own way, and outside of an occasional reprimand, nothing was said to him. This would frustrate me considerably, but never did deter me from doing what I thought I had to do. About the same time Rose was getting married in the middle of summer, I was receiving more news on the radio and newspapers of the fighting in Indochina. As I mentioned earlier, the Vietnamese Liberation Army and their hostilities with the French were torturing and killing missionaries, sparing no one in the wake of destruction and mayhem. Following an update with the New York Times ran the exclusive on their actions and listed all known torture and killed civilians as others in that rather lengthy list. One of them was Renee, Sister Monique. Name was posted after the civilian casualties and the missionary clergymen. I could still not comprehend it fully. Renee's tragic death. I did not seem like the right person, did not seem right that one person with all the goodness and love in their heart should meet such a painful end. The life snuffed out and suffering, my physical and mental pain in the hands of cruel and savage barbarians who knew nothing and cared less of their lofty and sacred goals. In the prime of her life, she went to this land with much love in her heart, only to be met with more cruel and devastating enemies than she ever encountered during her days in the French resistance. What I was experiencing at home was nothing compared to what Renee had gone through. She had been giving her life for some abstract goodness and divine enlightenment. We would have been better off if we had thought more of ourselves and lived our lives together, rather than to aspire to some exalted and a noble talent. We had gone through all this many times, but we were driven by the forces more powerful than our comprehension could conceive. I surely was not content with my lot in life, despite all my aspirations. I realized no great satisfaction in what my great morality and uprightness had created for me. I was worse off than someone who had never been driven by these conditions. Certainly Renee was worse off than anyone who had never had her faith in compulsion. We had both lost one more dearly than the other, and that was the tragedy of knowing one another. Minutes, please.
2 minutes and 40 seconds.
The news of the war in Indonesia, and more directly Renee's part in it, had upset me for weeks. Naturally, I could not say nothing of it at home, nor did I want to speak of it. It seemed unnatural to talk about it to my immediate family. The only comfort it gave me was that to put it into perspective of Rose's departure would help me to get over it, Rose's departure, more quickly. The very thought of Renee's warmth and loving only diminished more rapidly whenever I felt for Rose. I found myself concentrating more on the sentiment I still cherish for Renee than any other transient fleeting moment of the present with Rose. It was never meant to be, and I fully realized that from the outset. I tried to think of something besides Renee's plight, but each time I thought of it under control, I would hear something on the radio or read about it in the newspaper. My work did not help, since no one there even heard of Indonesia, much less what was going on there. It was something I would have to bear alone and come to some kind of adjustment and resolve in my mind. It stayed with me for the longest period until finally, several years later, the French was pushed out of Indonesia, and I knew it was all over with. Minutes?
1 minute left.
Did you ever go back to Paris since the war ended?
No,
Did you want to?
no,
Did you ever go back to Belgium since the war ended?
no,
Did you want to?
no.
Why not? How much you love Paris?
Well, I was too busy raising a family.
So you had no interest of going back?
No, if I had a business to go to, I would go, yeah, but I didn't have nothing, I had nothing to go back to.
In the years that you got out of the service, did you meet many World War II vets?
Casually?
Yeah.
No,
You didn't meet many?
no. I had stupid Walensky next door.
What did he do?
Yeah, I guess he was in the army too somewhere.
Was he in the Battle of the Bulge?
I don't know where the hell he's at. I don't know.
You
I don't know. I never talked to him that much.
I understand.